Okay, my name is Sally Wall and I'm interviewing Mary Sankey. It's the 11th of December 2018 and we're recording this in connection with the Kingsland Oral History Project. Hello Mary. Mary,
Hello.
can you just tell me a little bit about yourself, perhaps your age, your date of birth and about your early childhood memories, please?
I was born in Kingsland in 5632. And I was born in a poor house, right opposite the pub, the Corners Inn.
And what did your parents do, Mary?
Well, my mother had 4 children before me. My father he was a miner down South Wales. He used to come up so many times a year to see the family.
So your mum had to look after all the children then? So how many of there were you, Mary?
There were 7 of us. But my mum had her hand, she burnt in a fire. When she was 7, she fell in a fire. Because they didn't have electricity and gas in those days there at Kingsland. She was born in Lug Green. And my grandmother had to go out to the farm and do the washing and stuff like that to get some money. And my mum went to her older sister was looking after the baby, and the kettle was boiling on the fire. And Mum was only 7, she went to take the kettle off the fire and she fell in it. And she came out screaming, her hair on fire, and she burnt her hand and it was like a club end.
Oh, that's awful, Mary. But she still got married and had all those children.
And that hand was like a fist. And she used to put us, not open hand clip you, like if she punched you.
If you were naughty.
Or get your head against the wall.
Oh. And what are your first memories of being a little girl, Mary?
I can remember all the carnivals. Around August.
Carnivals?
Carnivals.
Yes.
And they started from the Croase, down the village, down to the church, up into the field. And that's where they, in the field between the church and the school.
Oh, right. Yeah. And were you in the carnivals? Were you on the floats?
I was in the carnival, yes.
And were they horse-drawn or were they vehicles, Mary?
They were horse-drawn and all sorts.
Okay, and can you tell me about where you went to school?
I went to Kingsland School when I was 5, and I didn't like it. So I said to them, I want to go to the toilet. So little Miss Morgan was there teaching. And she said to one of the girls was my friend. She was a little bit older, so she took me out to go to the toilet, and I got something else in my mind. My home was only just up the road. So I took to my heels and I ran out the home, and poor Jean went in to say I'd gone home. And Mum wasn't at home. So the two old ladies, Miss Drinkwater and Mrs Gregg, one was a widow, and the other was her sister. Did I say the name?
Yeah, Drinkwater. She said Miss Drinkwater.
Miss Drinkwater and Mrs Gregg. Of course, they kept me in there then. I don't know what happened to me after, whether I had a tanning or not.
And who were your friends at school, Mary?
Jean Budnam. She's married now and she lives at Stagbatch.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a lot of friends at school.
But was the school very big? How many, when you were at school there at Kingsland, how many children were in the school, do you think?
They're sure to be 80.
And did you have a playground and swings or
A
anything?
little playground. And then eventually they had a little bit down. They had the hut built. You went to school when you were 5 and left Kingsland at 14 unless you won a scholarship. And then you either went to Loughton School or Leominster Grammar School or wherever you...
So what happened to you when you were 14 then?
I left school at 14, I went to work.
And were you still living at the
did
poorhouse?
No, I was at Drybridge then. I walked down to Mrs Barnets, Highfield Close, and I went there as a little maid.
And what were your duties, Mary?
To go in to clean the house, carry the logs, feed the poultry, they got poultry there then. And I had to kill them and dress them. Then they had a pig, and I had to go to feed the pig every day. And they had loads of fruit.
And what were the people's names, Mary, where you worked there?
Barnet.
Yeah, and what did they do?
He was a major in... Come to the end of the war, you see. He was a major in Ludlow in the army.
And it was quite a big house, was it? Is it still there today, the house now?
Yes, it's Highfield.
Highfield, yes. Okay. And how old were you when you moved to Drybridge, Mary?
When I went to... I went from there. I had 15 shillings a week. I get muddled up how much money I had.
But you moved from working there then, and then where did you go? Or did you get married?
No, I went into the factory for a few months. And then I went as a nanny up Hereford Road. And I looked after
Was that Mrs Housden, was it?
Harvey. They lived up at 25 Hereford Road. They had no phone, no car, just a plane. The laundry went to laundry, just down the road. No washing machines, just plain. I love those two children.
Yeah. When you were living at Drybridge, Mary, can you tell me anything about, was that during the wartime or after the war? Can you remember anything about that? The prisoners of war or anything like that?
Yes.
Yeah? What can you tell me about that?
The prisoner of war went down to Page's Street Court because they had the hop fields and they had these prisoners to do the donkey work.
And where did they live?
He came by lorry from Prestine.
Right.
And they dropped them off at different places.
So can you remember anything about the war at Shobdon, the planes or the troops or the Americans?
I can remember there was families being in the village, especially the airmen. They had some families. My brain won't work.
That's okay, Mary, don't worry. It's a little bit difficult to remember sometimes. Can you tell me anything about any of the businesses that were in Kingsland? You know, any like shops or the post office or pubs, something like that, yeah?
There was the post office and I can't remember the name. It's Mrs East where she lived.
So there was a post office. Whereabouts in Kingsland was that?
There's two bungalows opposite the post office now.
Oh, right, yes.
And then the high grey house.
So right in the middle of Kingsland then, the post office was?
Yes.
Okay. Opposite the Garth somewhere?
No.
No.
Schools are Garth.
Right. Okay. And what about the Corners? Can you tell me anything about the Corners Inn?
The Corners Inn was a friendly pub. And on their buildings, there was an old building and my father-in-law, Charlie Sankey, he made saddlery for horses.
So he was a saddler, was he? And did he run his business from there?
He made the harness there.
Ah, right.
The shop had the two doors, one half, so you could open up like a door or the shutters.
Mm-hmm. And was there a bike shop or anything around there?
Next door.
And who run that? Can you remember?
Who come there first is Mr. Dykes. He cycled from Monkland out to Kingsland to do cavalry.
To do what, sorry?
To do repair shoes.
Oh, cobbler.
I
Yeah.
get my tongue twisted.
That's okay, no problem. That's not a problem. So there was a cobbler's there as well then?
Yes, and then many years after, Mr. Sarge Priest took it as a cycle shop repair.
Right, okay. And what about the Croase house that was by the side?
The Croase house belonged to Dr. Robert Williams. Dr. Bob, they used to call him.
Yeah.
And he used to get round to different patients by horse and cart, horse and trap. And he had a gardener come chauffeur.
Can you remember his name?
It was the surgery was in the Croase, part of the Croase house.
Yeah.
As you go up to the Green Road, there's some steps going up to the house and those to go to the surgery. And that is where Mr. Charles McCarthy's got his shop now. I think he does paint.
Okay. He's a painter, yes, yeah. And you said that there used to be a big bell or something, you told me, in the
What?
Croase house? A big bell in the Croase house garden?
There used to be a bell hanging on the end of the
Well, in the garden somewhere or behind the house, yeah?
yes.
And what was that for?
When there was a fire, somebody used to run and pull the train for all the firemen to run.
Okay. And when you were a little girl, was the fire engine, was it a horse and cart or was it like a lorry or...
It's like a lorry.
And can you remember any of the firemen?
Yes, my Uncle Edo.
Anybody else you remember?
Mr. Billy Lewis was the undertaker.
So was there an undertakers in Kingsland?
There were 200 undertakers
In Kingsland?
in Kingsland.
Who were they then?
Mr. Billy Lewis lived in the Gars.
Yeah,
It was Jubilee House then.
yeah.
And then there was Mr. Jack Priest that used to live up North Road.
Right. Okay.
And then when Mr. Edwards retired, Mr. Lewis, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Percy Edwards took over the undertaking, and he lived at the Bell House, which was once the pub.
Can you remember the Bell House being a pub, Mary?
No,
No. That was before your time then, was it?
sorry?
Was that before your time when it was a pub? Long time ago.
No, just before.
Yeah. Okay. And when you eventually tell me about meeting your husband and getting married and where you first lived.
Oh,
What was your husband's name?
my husband.
Yeah.
My husband was Arthur Sankey. And he used to drive the trains or fire the trains up to Kingston. And the first stop was Kingsland Station, which is a house now.
So he worked.
And I used to be a naughty girl. I used to meet the engine up there, going up the line and get up on the engine and go as far as Kingsland.
So you used to go for a ride on the train then? And that was the steam train, was it, Mary?
That was the one at night.
So where did the railway track used to run from? From Kington to where?
From Leominster. You come from Leominster up to Kington. But then, before then, they went out to Dolier, Prestine, in different branches.
Okay. And was there a station master at Kingsland?
Mr. Savoury.
Can you remember anything about that, about the station and Mr. Savoury?
They used to bring the coal there by trucks. And Taffy Evans, he was a guard, but his parents lived at their house. He went just over the bridge. And they used to sell sweets on a Sunday. There are several places you could get sweets on a Sunday.
Yeah, where were they?
We went to Sunday school, to the church, and my dad waited for us. And as we come to church, he'd take us to Mrs. Lowe, and she had the house that's joined in the Angel pub. And she used to sell bluebird toffees and things like that. And then down at Cobnash there was the name was Goodwin. Goodwin.
So there was a little shop down at Cobbanash?
Just sweets. And then we'll come up to the station, the railway station again. Taffy Evans' mum and dad lived there. And she had a sweet shop with cigarettes, I think. Sunday afternoon,
Oh.
Arthur used to take Elaine and Neil for a walk around the fields and finish up with Mrs. Evans, the old lady. Darling old lady she was.
And you'd have a few sweets? Can you tell me anything, Mary, about the old Baptist chapel in Kingsland?
Yes, I used to go to the Baptist chapel.
To Sunday school or to the chapel?
Sunday school.
Yeah? And who was the preacher there?
John James, he had a farm at Shirley. He used to have the Sunday school. That's who. And Elsie Goodman. She lived at Stonehouse, next to the Angel. And then she used to play the organ
In the church or in the chapel?
in the chapel,
Right, that was in the Baptist chapel.
yes.
Okay.
But on a Sunday afternoon, there was a chapel service. Well, morning and evening. But in the afternoon, there was a service with children.
Okay. And can you tell me anything about the huts out there? There were some huts that were at Cobnash, by Cobnash.
Huts.
They used to call them the huts, didn't they?
Oh, yes, around. There's builders there now.
It's the industrial estate now, isn't it? The little industrial estate.
Yes.
Can you remember what used to be there?
Land Army.
Tell me about that.
The women's land army used to go around the field help where the men were at war. These girls used to go around and work in the fields.
And that's where they lived, was it?
Sorry?
That's where they lived, in those huts, was it?
Yes. Eventually they came for all the... There were several houses, like flats.
And did the locals used to live there then, was it? Can you remember any of the families that lived there?
Yes. Yes. Pam Jones. If they finish their job, the Ralph Jones was a worker at Street Farm. And then he come to live there. And then Mrs. Jones, that was Godfrey.
So Godfrey Jones from the garage,
Yes.
was that a relative of his, was it?
Sorry?
Was that a relative of Godfrey's?
That was Godfrey's father and mother lived there.
Oh, right, I see, right. Okay, anyone else you can remember there?
Yes. Barbara Williams that lived at the council houses and Janet. They both married. They were Kingsland sisters. And they married Kingsland boys and they lived there. And the girls still live there now.
Mm-hmm.
Barbara and Janet.
Okay. And can you tell me anything about any of the pubs in Kingsland? How many pubs were there in Kingsland that you can remember?
There was a monument with Mrs. Wall. She's a dear old lady, and you go any time of day, you could have a packet of fags.
So that's the monument.
That's the monument.
Yeah,
They're made into 2 houses now.
yeah.
And then there was
Corners.
a bell. I'm trying to think who run it then.
Doesn't matter. Do you remember anything? Who used to run the corners at all?
Yes. Mitchell's. I've heard lots of stories that my grandfather-in-law, he was godfather to lots of the children. And he said this is the last, because before he was born, if he could be godfather to a child. She said, yes, this is the last. And they named him Charles.
Oh. And then there was the angel.
Yes. Ali. Hang on for Ali. Ali Davis. And there was Mr. and Mrs. Davis. And then he had a son, George. He died on. And then he had 2 daughters, including now there's Edie and Dora.
Okay. And can you remember, there used to be a pub right down the bottom of the village.
The
What was that one
Lion.
called? The Lion. Can you remember going there? Was that open when you were...
Yes,
Can you remember who used to be there or not?
yes. It won't come to you at the moment.
That's okay, it doesn't matter, but that was a pub, a busy pub, was it?
Sorry?
Was it a popular pub?
Yes.
Yeah.
Normans.
Oh right, Normans lived there.
Yes.
Yeah. And can you tell me anything about the bakehouse that you said used to be possibly on the Millennium Green?
Yes. It was Mr. Reynolds used to do the baking there.
And what did they bake?
Bread. That's all I can remember.
And that was where the Millennium Green is now.
Just in the corner of the little hut. And then went Beale's in the village shop. They had a baker's
At the shop?
at the shop.
Right.
And they got a house built there. Was hanging on to there's a school.
So the bakehouse was by where the school is now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's a big house. It used to be a nursing home. It was a shop.
Oh, Edgefield. Is it Edgefield? Used to be the shop.
Yes. Then next to Edgefield was a bakehouse.
Oh. And did that just do bread or did it do cakes?
They did bake all sorts of things.
Okay, and can you remember the butchers that used to be there?
Yes. And that was the Mitchells belonging to the pub. The bakehouse. What? No. The butchers was run by the Mitchells and Durdles. Fred Durdle, he lived within walking distance from Tom Mitchell. And they had there was a slaughterhouse. And that's where the Coronation chalets are, you know, where they...
So the slaughterhouse used to be where the Corners Inn chalets are now?
Where they bed and breakfast.
Yes.
Yes.
Because that used to be a skittle alley, didn't it, a long time ago?
Yes.
But before that it was the slaughterhouse.
Yes.
Right, and then there was the butcher's shop
Just at the
and
end.
Park House.
Now they used to live in Park House. The butchers, when Fred Durdle died, that's the first house over the crossroads from the corners in. absolutely. Durdles lived in that big house,
In Park House?
Park House.
Right.
And Mitchells used to live in your house,
Park Terrace?
Park Terrace.
Right.
But when Mitchells got the... When the Mitchells went to have their... They sold... They went from Park Terrace.
It's the 22nd of January 2019 and I'm continuing the interview with Mary Sankey, and Mary's going to tell us a little bit about the golf house at Kingsland. Who lived at the golf house, Mary, that you knew?
My late husband's grandfather, his name was Charlie Sankey. And the golfers used to go there after the golfing. I suppose the light was against them, waiting for the train to come down from Kingsland.
And what did they used to do there, Mary?
Play cards.
For money?
That I don't know.
Right, okay. And what did Charles Sankey do for a living?
He had a saddler's shop on the end of the building at the Corners Inn, where the restaurant is now. And he used to make saddlery for the horses and sell carters little seeds.
Packets of seeds?
Packets of seeds.
Okay. And do you know anything else he used to sell in the shop? Just leather goods, basically. Okay. And then if we perhaps talk about the football pitch and the cricket pitch, which you said you knew about?
Yes. The old boy, Charlie Sankey. He wasn't very tall, but he thought himself it. Stuck his chest out and he was it.
Did he used to play cricket or football?
Cricket.
Okay, and who did they play against? Kingsland team.
All different teams around cricket, but football was dullier. They all used to come down. And what they used to do, go in Matt Beggar's coal lorry, the back of the cleaner stack coal out of the lorry and a bench across for them to sit on.
That's how they got to the football matches?
And they used to call these pubs. And Auntie lived with me. And she said, she used to go with them.
What was your auntie's name?
Mary Sankey.
And where did she live?
With her mum and dad.
Where?
At the golf house.
Oh, at the golf house, yeah. Yeah.
And eventually she come to live with me.
Right. And they played football in the winter, did they? And cricket?
In the summer.
Yeah. And was there any sort of hut or anything there, or changing room?
There was a hut for changing. It was part of like a wood. You go along a road, you wouldn't see it.
Right.
But it goes round the rectory property.
Right. Okay, that's lovely. And can you remember them building the village hall? And who built them? Can you tell me a bit about that?
I was 21. And Maid of Kingsland did it. And I think, if I'm not right, Henry or Albert Williams paid money for the village. And he was a nephew of Robert. Dr. Bob used to be at Kingsland. And he belonged to the Holgate Farm.
Oh, right, yes, yeah.
And there was lots of sisters, and they lived next door to where Dr. Vaughan lived.
Right, okay. And was there a big opening event for the village hall, do you know, or?
I was in plaster Paris.
Were you? Why was that?
Hurt my back.
Can you remember the opening?
I do, but I couldn't dance, and I've never danced since.
Oh. But you went to the opening. And who opened it? Anybody famous, or?
That I don't know.
No?
But I know that the chairs were donated by Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith? Where from?
He lived up where the horse boutique is.
Oh, right. So he donated the chairs for the village hall?
Half of them.
Half of them?
And Miss Wenham and Elliot donated the other half.
Oh, that's interesting. Can you remember anything else about the village hall when it was open? Did they used to have dances or something?
There used to be dances. Oh, and fights. Blood used to be everywhere.
Oh dear. And you told me once that somebody very famous came there.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I didn't see him.
I thought he come to your house.
He came to my house next door.
Ah.
My mum lived there.
Who was that then?
Mr. Miles.
No, who was the famous person that came? Was it Leslie Crowther? Yeah?
Yes, Leslie Crowther.
And what was he doing there?
Well, he came to open the job for sale. My sister got him to come.
Did you meet him?
I was in Birmingham.
Oh, you were in Birmingham. Right, okay. Now, you used to live in number 2 and number 3 Park Terrace, Kingsland.
Yes.
When you got married, you lived in number 2 first of all. Can you try and explain to me what the cottage was like when you moved in? Explain perhaps some of the things that were in there and the garden.
Well, it was my little home first. And to have a home of your own is wonderful.
How many bedrooms?
2. But there was a landing going up the stairs onto the landing. And then the second bedroom straight in front.
And what furniture did you have in the bedrooms?
My auntie gave me a 3-piece suite. Feather bed.
And what was the kitchen and front room like?
Just a long kitchen.
did you have open fires or an open fire
Yes.
in the front room?
Open brick fire.
Yeah.
My brother built it.
What was your brother's name?
Bill Miles.
He was a builder, was he?
He lived at Drybridge house.
Right. Okay. And did you have a bathroom?
Yes.
Can you remember what was in there or what you used that for?
That was when we went in there first. There's a bathroom, toilet and a bathroom.
And what about in the garden, up the top of the garden? What was up there?
There were three
Cottages?
pigstyes and toilets. Pigsty and toilet, pigsty and toilet.
And did they have pigs when you were there?
No,
No. But did you used to have to use the outside toilet or did you have an inside one?
we inside one and one out for the gardener.
Ah, right. Okay. And then you moved into number 3 Park Terrace.
3 Park
then.
Terrace.
When was that? Can you remember?
Neil's 57
Right.
in March. And it was in April.
You moved in the April.
She was 2.
Right. And did you buy that? No?
No, 10 shillings a week.
You rented it to start with. Yeah? And who owned it then, number 3?
Mr. Hamlin Williams.
Right. Did he used to own all those cottages at one stage?
No,
Just number 3?
those 2 and
Those two.
3.
Yeah. And then you bought it off him, did you?
Eventually.
Yeah.
What money went, I can't remember what we paid.
That's okay, not a problem. And when you moved in there, you used to get your milk from opposite, did you? At Kaarlsons?
Occasionally.
Yeah. Can you tell me something about perhaps John Kaarlson and the milk? Aren't you related to John?
His mother was a cousin to my mum.
And can you remember John's father?
Yes, he was a Norwegian. And the ship was shipwrecked. And he never went back to his country.
What was his name?
Alfred Kaarlsons. He was a wonderful carpenter.
Excellent. And did he marry a local girl then, or?
He married a girl that he lodged with it. Kaarlsons, Nellie Kaarlson, was Nellie Kaarlson's mum and dad. Their names was Enoch, Chamberlain.
Right. So Mr. Kaarlson married a chamberlain then, and that became Mrs. Kaarlson. Yeah.
And my house. My grandfather was a sister to, was a brother to Mrs. Kaarlson, the old.
Ah, right. Okay. And can you remember their cows? They used to keep their cows and milk their cows.
I could tell you something.
Go on, tell me, because we can always cut it out.
Well, John, their son, they had a son John and a daughter Betty. But John always used to milk by hand and he used to have a berry on. And we had a boxer dog and she could come in.
Okay, Mary, you were just telling me about the boxer dog that you had.
She was very intelligent. You bring her spell things and she'd jump around the room. She wanted to go for a walk.
And what about the berry? You were saying about John
Oh,
and his
yes.
berry.
John Kaarlsons used to hand milk the cows, put a berry on, sit on a stool. So my little girl, Elaine, she used to go over there to John. And back home, she had it's all in her head. She used to put a mustard-coloured hat on with a black veil on it. And this boxer dog had got, it was a she. And Elaine tipped his bike upside down and sat on the bar of this, when you turn it over,
The bar of the bike, yeah.
between the seat.
Yeah.
She used to sit there and pull these drills of the dog. And the dog used to love it, and her nipples, her top of her tail went whish, 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 whish.
So she used to try and milk the boxer dog instead of a cow. Yeah? Okay. And did you know Mrs Kaarlsons, John's mother?
Yes, she was a cousin of my mum.
Yeah. Okay. And were you friends?
Sometimes
Yeah.
you put one of Arthur's coats to hang up in the conservatory to drip off when it got wet. And she'd say, I put somebody there to stand, not for her to see you. Not who was coming to the house.
Rightio. Okay. Then can you tell me a little bit about the shop at Edgefields? The Beals had that, yeah?
Yes,
Yeah? Can you remember what they used to sell in the shop or what it was like inside?
all sorts.
Can you describe it to me if you were walking through it?
If you go up at the steps to the two little doors, you went in, and to the right, there was a sweet shop, and then all the counters went across, over to the other side, and that was where bacon. And they used to bake bread.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. They used to bake bread, yeah?
They used to bake bread.
Yeah. And who used to serve in the shop? Can you remember?
He did, and he had two daughters.
Mr. Beale had two daughters. Can you remember their names?
One was Kathleen, and I think she lived in Bodnam. And then they had a boy, Ronnie.
Right. So they worked in the shop. And then you said there used to be a man that worked there that delivered...
Jack Price.
Right. Where was he from?
He's from Kingsland.
Right. And what did he do?
We used to work in the shop
Yeah.
and deliver the bread and things in a tricycle.
On a tricycle. Okay. And how far did he deliver? Just round the village?
I wouldn't know.
Yeah. But did you used to walk to the shop, did you?
Yes, it's only just down the village.
And did you buy all your stuff from there, or did you used to go to Leominster?
Go to Leominster on a bus.
Yeah. And what were the bus companies? Can you remember?
Bakeries,
Yeah.
Midland Red. Come from round Prestine in down there. And Yeoman just came from Wigmore
Oh, right.
up that way. Langfordine
Yeah.
came down too.
And where did you catch the bus?
Corners in. And if you went outside and put your hand out, he'd stop.
Yeah. And can you remember how much it was to go to Leominster?
6pence. But I walked it several times
Yeah.
when I used to work in the nursing home.
Right. And how often did those buses used to run? Can you remember?
How much? How much?
No, how often were the buses running? How many buses a day?
Between them all, I can't remember.
But quite frequently. Yeah. Mary, tell me about Goldings that used to come out from Leominster.
They used to come to say that they were there. And they used to have cans of their own, or people used to own them, and they used to fill them with paraffin, because sometimes they had little paraffin stoves.
Yeah. And what else did they sell?
Old soaps, Persil, Rinso, black lead for the fire grates.
I bet you've blackleaded some fire grates, haven't you?
My grandmother's always her job on a Saturday morning to clean her fire grate.
And what did they use?
Zebra.
And it was like black lead cleaner, yeah? And did you have one of those in your cottages?
No.
No?
A little bit of red brick. Mine was. Red brick cottage.
Red brick you had as a fire in the cottages at Park Terrace, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.